gentlemen, welcome to my presentation on weightlifting. And just to be clear, for my friends and family and viewers who are not familiar, I am talking about the sport of Olympic weightlifting. That is the snatch, the clean, and the jerk. And this is going to be a 4-part series that I'm going to do leading up to the Summer Olympics in Paris next month. So we're going to do a video today on general Olympic weightlifting, and then I'm going to have a video on each of the main competition lifts. Like I said, snatch, clean, and jerk. But for today, we're just going to do a general overview of what the sport is, and you're going to find that these videos, this series, follows a bit of a pattern. So I'm going to explain to you what the sport is in reality, what it means to compete in the sport, maybe some of the rules associated with it. And then in the second half of the video, I'm going to explain what the sport means to me, the mental processes that take place within me as I learn the sport and as I participate in it nowadays. And we're going to do the same thing for each of the lifts. I'm going to approach the lifts from reality and tell you the physics of what's actually happening. And then I'm going to tell you how I view the lifts in my head with my imagination. So without further ado, I want to get into the first lift. I'm going to a few slides up for you guys to look at while I'm talking. And so the first lift is called the snatch. This is my favorite lift. This is what got me into the sport of weightlifting. In competition, this is the first lift performed. It is one fluid movement from floor to overhead. And throughout any barbell movement pattern in the weight room, this is the longest range of motion. And given its nature, it is often deemed as the most technical, the most difficult lift to perform. Now, for that reason, it is my favorite lift. I believe it captures the essence of weightlifting. It does require strength, the snatch, but it requires a much greater attention to technique. There is a massive amount of room for error to take place in the snatch. And if you commit any of those errors, it is not forgiving. Most likely, if you're making an attempt at a heavy snatch, if you commit even one slight error in your pull, in your catch, in any aspect of the lift, you're going to miss it. The bar is going to win. And so that is really what drew me into the sport of weightlifting. And next week, I'm going to make a whole separate video on the snatch. But for now, I will leave it at that as the first lift performed in competition. Next up, we have the clean. I like to call this the Prince of Olympic lifts. It is similar to the snatch in that we are pulling the bar using our legs to generate power, but the technique isn't quite as complicated because the range of motion isn't as long. We are pulling the bar from the floor to our shoulders in the clean. And there is a greater strength aspect to the clean. There is much more room for error in it compared to the snatch, but you need to apply strength. It's gritty. It's a little more brute force, so to speak. And so in that sense, it is seen as the true power or strength movement in weightlifting. And you'll see it in other sports as well. You'll see it in swimming, you'll see it in track and field, you'll see it in a lot of throwing sports, the snatch as well. So it is a very, very potent exercise to train the generation of power. Now, in competition, the clean is performed in a complex with the jerk. It's called the clean and jerk. That is the second competition lift. It is technically two lifts, the clean and the jerk. In training, you'll see athletes separating these lifts into different pieces. You can see them separating it into front squat jerk, which takes the clean pull out of the clean and jerk. You can have them separate it into just the clean, or just the power clean, or just the hang clean. That's one of the things I like about weightlifting, is you can really break these down into almost an infinite amount of parts. And so when we put the clean and the jerk together, we have the second competition lift. And this is the jerk, specifically sometimes referred to as the king of Olympic lifts. This is the championship lift. This is what determines, in a lot of cases, unless you've already put up a massive total, the jerk is what determines whether you win or lose a competition. Most likely. Like I said, unless you're already way ahead of everyone else, the clean and jerk is where everyone starts to catch up and pull ahead and try to out-total the competition. So to be very clear, weightlifting is simple. It's whoever can lift the most amount of weight over their head. So we have 3 attempts at the snatch, we have 3 attempts at the clean and jerk. We combine our greatest numbers in those 2 lifts together, and whoever has the highest total wins. And there's some other rules as well. We're divided into weight classes and men and women. And there are some rules about pressing out. You'll start to see a lot of judges look at elbows, specifically in the split jerk, sometimes in the snatch as well. If there's any type of press out, meaning elbow movement, it's generally classified as a no lift. These are supposed to be snappy, they're supposed to be fast, and they're supposed to be decisive. And so that is what we look for in the split jerk. But I'm going to leave competition right there. And now I want to transition to my philosophy on weightlifting training. And this is how, over the years, I have used my imagination to shape the way I train weightlifting. And I break this down into 3 aspects. And the first one is power. Now, power is the name of the game in weightlifting. Contrary to popular belief, there is more power generated in weightlifting compared to our cousin sport, powerlifting. The names are not the most intuitive. I can make a separate video on that, and I won't go into it right now, but just know that the generation of power is integral to the sport of weightlifting. As soon as we start pulling the bar off of the floor, we are generating power, so that when we reach our hips, when we reach what is called in this sport the power position, that is when we can essentially launch the bar up. And we use that upward momentum on the bar to pull ourselves underneath it and to catch it and to successfully lift the weight. So in this sense, I'm not talking about that type of power. I am, but I am grouping this into the demands of your body. And one of those demands is strength. Squatting, pulling, pressing, those are what we look for in terms of strength. Now, when we can do those movements quickly, that is power. Strength displayed quickly is power. Power is a function of time. And so I'm going to wrap up power here by just saying it's anything that is a demand of your body. And I also group diet into this. It might seem like a weird place to put diet, but at the end of the day, we are what we eat. Our energy sources is determined by the calories we put in our body. Calories are a measurement of energy, and so optimizing energy sources I do see as an aspect of power. Now, let's move on to wisdom. Wisdom is our technique. This is our technical prowess. And if you haven't noticed already in weightlifting, this is essential. We cannot go anywhere without our basic fundamental technique. And on top of that, experience as well. So the number of repetitions that we've done at a certain weight, at a certain percentage, using those percentages to create intelligent programming, both a macro cycle and a microcycle, identifying long-term goals, using the correct accessory movements, applying those correct accessory movements in a way that improves our classic lifts. This all falls under wisdom. And even then, when we have made that application and we have improved our lifts, take it a step further, go up to 95%, go up to a 1 rep max, have a very high attention to detail, and focus on where you need to improve from there. There will always be room for improvement. And so if you can have a high attention to detail and find where you can improve, that is a large aspect of wisdom. And I would boil this down to the demands of our mind. And last, but certainly not least, is courage. Now, this is an aspect of weightlifting that I would argue is the most difficult to develop. It is much less tangible compared to power and wisdom, but what it gives you the ability to do is apply your wisdom and power. And this is your mind and your body working together. So, for example, when you're setting up for a weight that you've done before, but maybe it's 95% of your max. So it's a weight you've done before, but it's also heavy. And so you know it's going to require a lot from you. These lifts happen in a matter of 2 seconds, sometimes a little bit longer, but generally 2 to 3 seconds these lifts take. And so that is hours and hours of training, all down to a very, very short amount of time. And so you need to be confident. You need to believe in your abilities. You need to believe in your training. You can have all the power and all of the wisdom. If you don't have the confidence that you're going to be able to pull and throw that bar over your head, it's not going to happen. And we can take that a step further by using something called clairvoyance. And that might sound very mystical, but everyone does this in any sport. You know, think about a baseball player or a basketball player going for a 3-pointer. He's sitting there, he's looking at the basket, and do you think he's just completely empty in his head? No. He's looking at the basket and visualizing what it's going to look like when it goes in, the sound it's going to make, the reaction in the crowd, everything. He is predicting what is going to happen 5 to 10 seconds in the future. And the same goes for weightlifting. This is an aspect of courage. And this is what I would call the demands of our spirit. Now, I'm not going to nerd out too much here, but some of you may have noticed that I borrowed these aspects from the Triforce. The Triforce is a symbol from a video game that is near and dear to my heart. This is from the Legend of Zelda series. And not going to go too much into it now. I could probably make a whole series on why this video game is important to me. But for now, I just want to highlight that this is where I pulled the power, wisdom, and courage motifs from. And in The Legend of Zelda, a very evil individual, the main antagonist, finds the Triforce and he uses it for evil. And he's obsessed with power And so the Triforce of power belongs to him, and it splits, and there's this whole story that goes on. But in general, the Triforce is a symbol that represents the hero's journey. And this, this, my friends, is why I love weightlifting. Now, I said the snatch is my favorite lift, and that will always stand. The snatch is what pulled me into weightlifting. I remember I saw a clip of Clarence Kennedy just playing around, actually playing around with 100 kilograms, 220 pounds, chucking it over his head, doing whatever he wants with it. And I was fascinated. I was blown away. I was mystified. I didn't understand it. 100 kilograms is a weight that I was familiar with. I could squat it. I could deadlift it. I could move this weight, but I did not understand the physics of throwing it over your head, the technique, the form, the the mental processes. Where do you go in your head to to do that? And so I saw this calling ahead of me, this gigantic beast of a lift, probably the most intimidating that you could ever do in the weight room. And I looked at it and I looked at it and I was like, I can beat you. I can actually do this. I don't think I can do 100 kilograms for a while, but I could do 100 pounds pretty soon. I think I can get 100 pounds over my head. It might not be pretty, but I can keep working on it. I can set out on an adventure. I can learn all of the spells, all of the abilities. And by spells and abilities, I'm talking about the power position. I'm talking about clean pulls. I'm talking about snatch pulls, snatch balance, power snatch, hang snatch, tall snatch, muscle snatch, all of these little pieces of equipment, let's call them, that geared me up for the big boss battle, the dragon. And that dragon, to be very clear, was a 60 kilogram snatch. That was the journey that I set out on. And this is what I love about weightlifting is you can take it wherever you want. And I love using my imagination. And I'm going to get more into this in the next video when I cover the snatch, but I really did view this as a journey. And I saw the 60 kilo snatch as a dragon. And once I conquered that dragon and took its skull and kept it as a trophy, the journey just continues from there. And now I have this trophy of this epic adventure that I went out on and successfully completed and came back to tell everyone about. This is Lone Wolf weightlifting. This is the journey that I speak of. And so I challenge all of you to go find your dragon. Whatever it may be, find something in reality that really, really puts your mental processes to the test. And so the point of all of this is to find something in your life that challenges you in this way. This is your dragon. And it should be something that requires you to go deep within. This is a little depth psychology experiment. You can do it on your own. And when you go within, you will find everything you need to conquer this dragon. And it might take time. It will definitely take time, actually. But along the way, you'll meet people and you'll learn things. And you learn things about yourself. And as you start to change the outside world, as you approach that dragon, as you gear up for the fight, your inside world will change too. Your mental processes, everything will change based on your journey. And this is the value in weightlifting. This is why I love this sport. And so I challenge all of you to go find your dragon. Go find your friends and take it on. Find your power, your wisdom, your courage. Assemble your Triforce. Restore peace to your land. And The next time an adventure comes along, the next time something challenges you, you'll have that dragon skull as a trophy. And you'll know that you are capable. Until next time, guys.